last week. What I wanted to explain the code since I didn't get a chance to last week because of issues I was having with my computer upstairs. Uh, so I just want to go through how this actually works. Um, the game code that runs the game is actually down here towards the very end. I'm going to go ahead and put in some comments so that we can actually section off parts of the code that way. I don't know, it's more readable for you. So down here is the user input code, which basically just functions to take these options. Actually, I should put this maybe up here. Another thing, my code isn't very well done. I sort of wrote these things in parts, and I didn't think to declare these once and for all at the top. I should have done that, but you'll see, because I didn't have that foresight, when I went through making the code for this, I ended up having to declare these and initialize them at multiple points in the code, and that's never a sign that you coded it quite properly. You should only type something once, and I typed this 2 or 3 times, so my mistake. But anyway, this section of the code just stores in memory these variables. It sets these to be elements on the HTML document. So it looks to the HTML file and it finds things with the ID of A or B or C or D, and those are the options. So those correspond to these boxes that are in this. So this is option A, option B, option C, and option D. So this just simply grabs those from the page, and since this is kind of long to type each time, I just gave it a name, so I do this once, and then from here on out I can just talk about this cell by referring to option A. I can talk about this cell by just typing option B. I've made an association between this code and this namespace. Excuse me. So once I have them defined, I can say, well, add an event listener onto option A, listen, or rather wait for anyone to click the option, and the on-click event listener should, when it is clicked, run this function. This function is a generic function, and it will simply access the game object and submit an answer for that question. It'll submit option A, or if you click the other one, it'll submit option B, or you can do any of the options that are available. So this is the user input code, and down here I'll say end user input code. So that's this code in here. All this does is allow the user, when they click something, it submits it to the game. So that's all that does. The logic of the game is really kind of, I guess, there. When you submit an answer, the game object will respond with however it's told to by its own method called submit answer. So I access in the game object the submit answer method, I feed it this information, and it will do something with that. The game object itself is defined here. So this kind of you clicking things is what drives the action of the game. The game won't do anything until you click something, and this is what it does. Right above that, I create the game object. It's a new object of type game, and the game, if I hover here, it says I need to give it a list of something, and what I'm giving it is a list of questions. So you'll see that when I hover over it, It shows that it's a list, or rather an array. You can see the these brackets mean that this is not just a single question, but a set of questions. And the things that are in this list or in this array, the technical name is an array, they are objects of type question. So the game is fed a list of questions. And basically, when you submit an answer, it checks to see if that was correct. If it is, it gives you points. In any case, it moves on with the next question. It does keep track of how many points you got and how many questions are in the game. It also checks to see if the game is over after you answer a question. So basically, was that the last question? It checks. And if it was, it goes to an end screen, which you can see if I play this. What is 1 plus 1? Is it 1? You can try that. Which animal can fly? Is it the toad? Those were both incorrect. I scored 0 correct out of 2. You can run it again. You could answer better, or maybe not, and then it'll keep track. So how does that work? Well, I guess let me section off some more of this code so that you can see what it does. Here's where we create the questions. So that's where we create the questions. I only have 2 questions in this quiz. I sort of did it in a weird way, but it works. So for the first question, I just say, okay, make a new question. I want to, after I create the new question, I don't want it to go away right away. I want to store it somewhere. So I'm storing it under the name new queue. So new queue is a new question. I have to create a new object of type question. And this first question has some there's default text for that question. There's default options. That's basically, the default is this. Every time I add a question without changing it, it'll be this question with these options. So that one, I didn't make any changes. I just made a question with the default text, and then I said display it on the screen. So that's sort of how the game gets started. I make the new question, I display it, but it won't really run or do anything until I make a game object, which I do down here. I then create the question list, the question array. It's empty when I create it. There's nothing in it, but it has the structure that it can hold many things. The way you add the question that we just made to the list is with .push, this push method. JavaScript uses the push pop system with these methods for arrays. It just appends, puts it at the end, the new elements to an array. And I guess it returns the new length of the array. I didn't realize that. Pop would remove the last one from the list. So you can push them on, pop them off, items into a list. I'm adding questions to this list, so I'm calling it the queue list, the question list. I added another question. I made up another name, Q2, and I said new question. But this time I didn't just quickly add it to the list. I first changed it. How do I do that? Well, I access its text property. I set that equal to which animal can fly. I access its A option property, and I set all the options, and then I tell it which option is the correct option that the game should assign points for. And then I add that to the list. I'm going to add a third question. I could say var q3 and copy all this and change these all to q3, but really, once you create this storage space, this sort of memory location, I put the new question into that, and then I change that question, and then I put it in the list. So now I can access this new question either by calling up Q2 again, like I do in all these instances, or here, Or I could actually just go to the cue list and say, give me, option, the second thing in your list. So if I overwrite this or I delete this, I won't actually lose the question. So I'm actually going to reuse this namespace, this memory location, because I've now made a copy, or I've put the question into the list. So I now don't need to store it under this name. I can access it in a different way. So to make a new question, I'm going to copy all this. I don't need to declare Q2. It's already declared that there should be a memory location called Q2. I'm just going to recycle. I'm going to use it again. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to come down, paste, and I'm going to say, all right, you were that new question before that I changed to this. Now throw that one out. I mean, it's not lost, but throw it out of this space and make way for yet another question. And this time the text will be, what shape is the Earth, approximately? And so we can say a cube, spelling helps, a pyramid, a pentagram. It's not even 3D. Well, we'll do 3D stuff. How do you spell that? No, it's one R, isn't it? Parallelepiped is a three-dimensional prism. And then a sphere. It does bulge in the middle, but it is a sphere. Correct option should be D. So that's how you make a new question. Make a new question. Set this text. Which one's the right one? Put it in the list. Now we should have 3 questions. That's all you got to do to add new questions to the game. So I'm going to run it. What is 1 plus 1? This one? What animal can fly? Well, I know that. What shape is the Earth approximately? Maybe it's the parallelepiped. I got 1 out of 3. So that's at least how you add a new question. I'll save for another video finishing this explanation up.